Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Colm O'Regan Wants a Word. This programme is about words and the way we speak here in Ireland. It's in two parts. The first show is called Colm O'Regan Wants a Word in Private, and it's about how we speak among ourselves and at home and with our neighbours. And the next show is called Colm O'Regan Wants a Word in Public. It's how we talk on telly, on social media and in politics and all that kind of thing. I'm joined by two very talented comedians, ladies and gentlemen, Tara Flynn and Paul Tylack. So throughout the show, Tara and Paul will be doing a few sketches to kind of add a little bit of flavour to what I'm saying. Also, because it's Radio 1 and I'm a bit of a spoofer, I need to add a bit of credibility to the show. So I've brought in an expert who actually knows stuff. So, ladies and gentlemen, give a huge round of applause to Terry O'Hagan. Terry is an archaeologist, historian and blogger. And Terry, you blog at Vox Hibernicum, which straight away, when you use Latin, it just sounds clever automatically. What did the Romans think of us Irish?
Well, they kind of thought the same as everyone else. They thought we were barbarians, but we were the barbarians at the end of the world. You know, so we were more barbarian than all the other barbarians put together. One of my favourite quotes is by a Roman writer who's actually writing in Greek. He could possibly be Greek, called Diodorus, and he's actually talking about Celts on the continent. But he has a brilliant quote about the way they talk, and if you sort of take away the fact that he's writing 2,000 years ago, he could be talking about us. He talks about them using few words. They speak in riddles, for the most part hinting at things and leaving a great deal to be understood. They frequently exaggerate with the aim of extolling themselves and diminishing the status of others. They are boasters, threateners, and given to bombastic self-dramatisation.
I have to say, when I heard those quotes, I nearly died. I nearly died when I heard those quotes. Yeah. So, the reason I'm doing this show is I've always loved words. I love the sounds of them. I've always kind of a fascination, not necessarily for the usefulness of them, but just the sheer wonder of them. I think also it's because of where I'm from. I'm from a County Cork village called Dripsey, and it is a real place name, it is. It's one of those, there's a few place names in Ireland which were odd transliterations or translations from Gaelic into English, you know, places like Tempo and Muff and Nobber and all that kind of thing. I like Dripsey. Dripsey, for me, it sounds less like a place you might live in, more like the kind of disease you'd catch in a Victorian Charles Dickens style novel, really.
My parents died of the Dripsey.
Exactly, that kind of thing. So, Dripsey is a country village, and I went to school in Cork City. There are a couple of Cork accents. There is the one that we're all kind of familiar with, the stereotypical one. It's called the Montenotte accent, the posh Cork accent. And it's the accent of a mother describing to her friend how her son is getting on.
Well, Finbar's doing medicine now, and of course he'll work with his father then when he's done.
But I went to school in a more real area, and the accent I learned is a different Cork accent, so it kind of goes a little bit like this. Lamp the gatch of the fiend there after he got the feek off his beard down by the back of the 5-star. He's reeking her old lade'll find out and give him a reefing. Which roughly translates as...
Why, that fellow is walking unusually after a romantic assignation with his long-term partner at the back of a now-defunct supermarket. He fears that should the young lady's mother find out, she may administer physical punishment.
The Irish language, particularly old versions of the Irish language, have wonderful words like that. One of my favourites is coránas, which is the hunger you get from watching other people eat. And it's a perfect word. And that word comes from Dineen's dictionary, which is a 120-year-old dictionary that has words for situations you didn't know you need to know, but you definitely do now. Wonderful words. You follow him on Twitter. Words like gliagoil, the hollow intermittent sound of one's boots in slushy snow or water. Isn't that lovely? Or a rosh there, a disorderly person, a roisterer. A rosh der stripaha, a ranting woman. A rosh der bo, a trespassing cow. You know, it's that nice. And I love this one. Ruish na mahan, A frivolous person addicted to visiting. I also want words for situations for which there are no words already. For example, the rage you feel when you do something stupid and you've nobody else to blame. Like when you're walking through the house and you catch the hoop of your belt in a door handle, right? It's the single stupidest thing you can do, right? And there's a feeling of like, I am the stupidest person. I don't know who to hit here. I can't hit the door because it's definitely not the door's fault. We asked our wonderful audiences here at the project, what are their situations in their lives that they would like to have words for?
If you get a load of technology for Christmas, like somebody gets a new laptop, somebody gets a new PlayStation or whatever, it never, ever works on the first day. And that whatever that frustration is where you're all shouting at each other and it's Christmas Day and it's supposed to be nice. And then suddenly after all of that, you finally get it working and you realise you need batteries and you don't have batteries. I don't know what the word for that is, but it's making me angry right now.
When you fancy someone on public transport and you fall in love for the entire duration of the journey and then you never think of them again.
You know when you're walking along and it's icy and you kind of slip, but you kind of catch yourself, but you're not really slipping, but you kind of are slipping, but you don't, there's no word. Like German has words for that, I think, but not English.
When you wave at someone and you think you know them but you don't and you're trying to awkwardly walk away, you're just like...
My favourite one there was the falling in love with somebody on public transport. I would think the word for that would be Lewis women. I think that deserved more than a groan, but anyway, it's fine. And then, of course, there are words that used to exist. Terry, from a medieval point of view, are there any words from Irish or English or the past that we should bring back?
I think we should bring back several. Two of my favourite old English words that aren't used anymore, but really, really sound like they're Irish. I think we should bring them back and reclaim them. Tell everyone that they're actually ours. One of them is, and if you bear with me, you need to do this in a Dublin accent, a snack lifter. A person who pops his head into the pub to see if there's anyone in there who'll stand them a pint. I know a few snack lifters.
There's a few in here. What?
And the second one is a snolly gosler. And that's a shrewd, unprincipled person, especially a politician.
If we learn nothing else here today, my favourite Old English word is a nimgimmer, who back in the 17th century was a surgeon who worked only at night and specialised in curing venereal disease. Isn't that great? So if your nims need gimming, he's the man to talk to. But if we never had another new word, we still have a lovely way of talking in this country. Coming up now are some lovely examples of how we talk here across a variety of important topics. Now, for listeners at home, they are speaking English. Like, say, for example, in this first one, when they're talking about donkeys at the Castletown Donkey Derby.
Turn to the camera there, Kieran. Turn to the camera. Kieran was runner-up last year, and 2 years ago he won it, the big prize. And, Kieran, what's your donkey's name?
Jeez, I couldn't tell you, Joe.
You couldn't tell me?
I haven't a clue what his name is.
It's one of my favourite expressions, I couldn't tell you. And I often wonder about tourists who arrive in a city and ask for directions and somebody says, geez, I couldn't tell you. And the tourist is wondering, what kind of tyrant rules this town? That people are even afraid to pass on such basic directions. Quite often we talk about religion in very lofty terms. This next bit is religion in a more earthy description.
He wasn't going to sleep this night and he thought he heard a little kid saying, come back Patrick and tell us about God. And so any other young fella say, well, he's let me there for 6 years, he's did meaningless on me, he's let me starve and he's took me away from me mother. I wouldn't go back there for anything.
That was give up your old sins, of course. And on the other side of the coin, we have a lovely way of asking people for a fight.
I'm not going to skip the queue, but I want to fight Davy first. Then your son John. He's the same age as myself, 34. He's in the prime of his life. I'm in the prime of my life. I have no excuses. I want Davy first, and then John.
Ah, yes, the poetry and musicality of the Irish there. these are the kind of I think these are the kind of things we should be learning in history in school. But don't get me started on school, especially learning languages and learning Irish. Like when we were learning Irish, it was always so bloody mournful. Everybody talks about peg, but what about the shanachal we used to have to learn? Do you remember? You'd have to learn off loads of shanachal, old sayings, and then put them into wherever they would fit in the essays that you were writing. Now, the problem was we were all, exuberant teenagers full of life, but these shanachal were basically condemning any kind of initiative or taking a chance on anything. So you had 18-year-olds mouthing things like,
Is traum cearc vad?
Which translates as,
even a hen becomes a burden on a long journey.
Like the poor hen didn't ask to be brought on the long journey. They somehow managed to mix death and tea.
Marav le te, agus marav gan e.
Dead with tea, dead without it.
Will you have some tea? No, thanks. I have enough existential angst in my life at the moment. Basically, shanachals that said that life was kind of pointless.
Mas malat de vulla fai boss, mas malat de chana pos.
If you want to be praised, die. If you want to be criticised, marry.
And in studying languages like Irish, if you weren't in a permanent state of depression about the pointlessness of human existence, you were always in a hurry, permanently tense, because the words and phrases you used to learn off, it was always like the wind. I did everything nos na guiha. Constant state of tension about having to do things suddenly. Gutubban, suddenly. So, like the wind, suddenly. And all the while doing this, you had to maintain imahurum. You had to maintain an opinion. So you had to do everything in your own opinion, like the wind and suddenly. I woke up this morning, like the wind. I had my breakfast suddenly, in my own opinion. As a result of eating things so quickly, I developed some problems, like the wind. That kind of thing. I believe that kind of education doesn't prepare you for real life. You don't talk about real things. The best way to learn the language of any country, I think, is to eavesdrop. Although it's not that easy to eavesdrop here in Ireland because we're still very guarded with how we talk. In America, they're much more open about how they talk. I guess it's years in America of going to therapy. They don't care who has to hear what they have to say. I was in New York last year and I was walking down the street and there was a girl walking ahead of me, about 10 feet ahead of me. It was daylight and there was other people around, don't worry. And she was on the phone and she was talking to a friend of hers about a recent breakup that she had. And I was able to understand absolutely everything of what she was saying.
Okay, so, I broke up with this guy and, well, a number of reasons. He was passive-aggressive and he had issues talking about his feelings. I don't know, I guess he was Irish. But I spoke to my therapist and my therapist spoke to her therapist and they both agreed I'd done the right thing. Yeah. Maybe I was searching for some sort of security because of my own issues, with my mom. Yeah, well, she's in jail. No, a different guy.
Here you would not learn anything from a phone conversation. You would hear the words, but you wouldn't know what they were talking about.
Hello. Oh, sure, feck it, yeah. Oh, pure disaster.
Oh, the father was the same?
Yeah. Sure, he got kept back in high babies, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure, this is it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
And then at the end, quite infuriatingly, they'll throw in one tiny little bit of detail that lets you know you missed out on a really, really juicy bit of conversation.
Yeah. But look, something? We were very lucky with the judge we got in court today.
It's so infuriating. I love the moments where you hear that one line, though, from a conversation that allows you to think about what they were talking about. Last year, I was walking down the street. Two lads were walking towards me, deep in conversation. Just as they passed me, one turned to the other and said,
What I want to know is, what kind of an idiot would bring a glass bottle to 10 Mass, like?
And that was all I heard. That was the one line I heard. But you could almost start a Booker Prize-winning novel with that. Before the show, we asked the audience what was the most tantalising thing they ever overheard in a discussion.
thinking, yeah, I heard an entire plan of how somebody, their friend was in jail and how they were going to, the exact method of how they were going to get the drugs into the jail over the wall, exactly how far you had to stand at exactly what corner of the street. And I knew what time they were doing it. I knew the code they were using so the person would know that it was coming. And they spoke very loudly so the entire bus knew exactly. Like it was a whole secret plan that was not so secret.
I once heard a man advising his son-in-law not to shoot his wife.
I did hear this the other day. Apparently, when female elephants mate, afterwards, all the female elephants in the herd stomp around and wave their trunks about and celebrate that she's gotten the ride. So, yeah.
I think that last woman was just watching a documentary. I do think, though, there's something we need to take from the Americans and the way they speak. And it's not a stereotype about positivity. It's about exercising their rights as a consumer. I just love listening to an American order a sandwich. It's just, they have the right to that sandwich.
Yeah, I'll get a sandwich.
I'll get a sandwich. The sandwich is going to happen. We sometimes order a sandwich on the 80% expectation there mightn't be any sandwich.
You wouldn't be able to give us a breakfast roll there at all, would you? You know, if you don't want to, it's grand, like.
Listen to an American specify what they want in the sandwich, and more importantly, what they don't want.
Yeah, I'll get a pickle, tomato, salami, but no egg. I am like egg intolerant.
Whereas we could have anaphylactic shock reaction to eggs, to the extent that our tongues would swell up and come out through our ears. We will specify that we don't want any egg, but then we'll watch in silence as the sandwich technician puts what can only be described as the week's output of a battery farm of eggs on top of the sandwich. We'll watch in silence, except to turn to the man behind us and say,
"She's putting fucking eggs on the sandwich. What did I say to her, like?"
And then the sandwich person will say,
"Is everything okay with sandwich?"
"Ah, yeah, it's grand, no bother."
So, in thinking about the way we speak here in Ireland, it got me thinking about what is it like for people who have moved here, particularly at a certain age, where they've been in their own country for a while, and then they have to pick up the language here after a certain age. So, for the first time, and exclusively to Colm O'Regan Wants a Word, I'm bringing Irish English onto the Leaving Cert syllabus, and we're going to start with an Irish English listening comprehension test, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this is worth 15% of the exam. So please listen up. In this excerpt, Paul will walk into the shop owned by Tara.
Well? What's the crack?
Sure.
I suppose you heard.
I did.
The whore.
A pure Scot.
Nothing would surprise me with that family.
And the length of the skirt.
And how are you?
Sure, you know yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you'd just like to open your exam papers on page 12, we'll look at the questions. Question 1, why wasn't Paul invited to the wedding? Question 2, who should have been at that funeral? Question 3, who do they say will get the house? Finally, during the silence, who was judging who more? It's not just what we say, it's how we say it. We have such a range of accents in this country. I don't have a very strong Cork accent because I needed to get work in Dublin. And you see, I do a little bit of voiceover, and there's very little voiceover work with a Cork accent unless you're complaining about the price of something. It's the same with a Dublin accent. There's never an ad with a proper Dublin accent unless the person in the ad is doing something illegal. Ah, for Jesus' sake, Deco.
What's wrong, Alto?
They appear to have a comprehensive burglar alarm system installed.
So what?
Well, both of us are typical thieves. You can tell from the big accents on us.
Burglar alarms, keeping the working class out of your home.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with that in mind, let me present every Irish ad ever on the radio. What's wrong, darling? You seem upset.
Oh, it's this middle-class problem I have. Something to do with a mortgage or financial product.
I can help and all in any ways. Tarmalina this evening, Harold the Gargle.
When you have a middle-class problem, don't try to cut corners and go to somebody who talks like that. He's going to be quite short-termist in his outlook, and most of his transactions will be cash-based. You need reassuring middle-class mail.
Reassuring middle-class male?
Yes, someone who talks like this will solve all your middle-class problems. Unless you need a mechanic, of course.
I'm a mechanic and all in any ways. Well, I'm good at getting into cars, what?
You in the blue hoodie, you are trespassing on public property. Leave this area immediately.
Ah, for Jesus' sake.
I noticed, by the way, that I'm playing the helpless woman and it's the man fixing everything. Why can't I fix something?
But women do fix things in ads. It's just in the softer skills areas, such as guilt, guilt, guilty guilt. Go on, so we'll mind your ma'am. Terry, just talking about accents, did we have accents long ago? Where did they kind of come from? And were we snobbish about the way people spoke in medieval times?
It's kind of hard to be able to distinguish it. And what's really, really strange about Ireland is you have this one language throughout all of the Ireland, but you've got like 150, 200 different petty kingdoms at any one stage, you know? And I think that's why we have so many accents, because there was just so many places and people didn't move around an awful lot, you know? I mean, we're only 200-300 years moved away from the land, really. You were tied to that land, so you didn't move. Basically, we're all inbred muck savages.
Don't blind us with technical terms there. It always annoys me how snobbish we are towards our accents. I don't think they do it in the UK. Their regional accents, they're quite proud of them. They'll say in drama, they'll give good lines to people with strong accents. Like there will be a Scouser who'll say, "You do me Edinburgh, I love you. I'm mad about you. I just want to spend the rest of my life with you." You know, whereas here, all plays, they kind of sound the same, don't they? You've been on radio plays.
Yeah, I've been in plays. It's usually, there's a lot of tea being drunk.
Yeah.
It's usually, oh, there you are. A lot of acknowledgement, I think, of people's arrival. There you are now. Come in, Father.
And whenever I turn on a radio play, it's always, "What's wrong?" You know what's wrong. It's him, isn't it? Don't mention his name. And then they have some tea, really, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, there you are.
But I always like to end on a positive note, and maybe as an antidote to the snobbery that is sometimes associated with our regional accents, to tell you about a time when a regional accent gave us the most powerful message you can give anyone. It happened on a TV show that was on RTE last year called And Then Comes Marriage. It was about couples who were getting married and they put them on a pre-marriage course. Now, one of the couples was from Arklow. The Arklow accent, you never hear it on telly, yet I heard it say one of the most beautiful things you can ever hear. Towards the end of the programme, they were asking all the couples about whether they found it hard to make time for the physical aspect of their relationship. They asked the men, "Do you find it hard to make time for making love?" And the Arklow man had this reply about how you keep the spark alive.
You will get the odd night where you're like, "Oh God, I'm tired," but then you I suppose it's probably going to sound bad, but you just power through it. Like,
I wanted to put that towards the end, ladies and gentlemen, because I see it as a wonderful motto for us in our lives. If you feel that life is getting you down and you're wondering there's too many obstacles in your place, ladies and gentlemen, just put on an Arklow accent and power through it. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Colm O'Regan Wants a Word in Private. My huge thanks to Terry O'Hagan. And also to Paul Tylack and Tara Flynn. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Words in paper, words in books, words on TV, words for books, words of of comfort, words of peace, words to make the fighting cease, words to tell you what to do. Words are working hard for you. Eat your words, but don't go hungry. Words have always nearly hung me. Words of nuance, words of skill, and words of romance are a pill. Words are stupid, words are fun. Words can put you on the run. Mots pressés, mots sensés, mots qui disent la vérité. Mots maudits, mots mentis, mots qui manquent le fruit d'esprit.